Hello, everyone. It's an absolute pleasure to be speaking to everyone this day. I trust everyone as well. I'm Damilola Odunlade-Akeju, the founder and CEO of DriveMe Fleet Services in Nigeria, and I'm here to take on the topic, the future of corporate transportation in Africa. What is corporate transportation? It really is, you know, the the provision of ground transportation to individuals, employees, and corporate executives. This service is typically provided by rental companies um, who provide the vehicles, the driver, and the security if required. Executives and VIPs need to be transported around the cities they are visiting. So you typically um, see a situation where a VIP, an executive lands in a new city for business or whatever reason he's in that city for and needs to be transported around that city and doesn't necessarily have to or want to um, order any of the ride hailing services like your Ubers or Bolts or any of those services within the city. You know, they most likely require a more specialized um, transport system to move them around that city. So they would typically um, have booked a rental vehicle for the period or for the duration of their stay in that city, and the vehicle will typically be waiting for them upon arrival and will be assigned to them throughout the duration of their stay within that country, city, or wherever it is that they are. So corporate transportation really involves the movement of it's more specific. It's a more specific movement of people, for or individuals from point to point within a city. Um, and why corporate transportation is so important. It's not limited to luxury vehicles for executives. It also involves the staff transportation through a dedicated bus service system arranged by the company. So you realize that some organizations have like a staff bus system that moves their employees from point to point, especially from their homes to the office and back. So they've arranged they probably have their own fleet of buses or are working alongside an organization that provides such services. And why is this, corporate transportation so important? It increases the safety levels for staff and executives compared to them driving their own vehicles up and down the city. With corporate transportation, the employees have been taken care of by the organization. That is, they provided a vehicle, they provided a driver, they provided security, if the case may be. They've taken care of the entire foiling and the entire, route plan and everything. So pretty much the staff just have to just hop into the cars or the buses or whatever type of transportation they've been organized or they've been scheduled to commute with, and they just hop in and be comfortable in those vehicles. And of course, it creates convenience. So you can imagine in a city like Lagos in Nigeria, where an average person spends about 3 hours commuting daily because there's a lot of traffic congestion and just other factors on the road. So imagine if an organization has provided like a staff bus system for their employees. So the staff of a company does not necessarily have to drive their own vehicles. They just hop on the bus, go to work, hop on the bus, and come back home. So this is created a high level of convenience. So you see that the staff can even be more productive while commuting. Yeah, of course, this speaks to the second point of increased productivity. So of course you can, because you're not the one driving, you're not the one moving around. You can afford to read a book, continue your work on your laptop, catch up, do several other things while you're commuting to and from work. And of course, it increases the motivation levels for employees, whereby they're they're highly motivated because they understand that the company cares for them. You know, they're well taken care of, and don't particularly have any transportation issues. Considering some cities where staff may not necessarily have a car, or have to take on public transportation, but because their organization has provided the transport system for them, and they really have no issues, and they're just motivated to go to work to get their best work done and just deliver excellent work for the organization. So the African context of ground transportation, as I earlier mentioned, that it involves, like your black car services, your luxury car services, or the bus service for staff transportation. So the African context, speaking from the African perspective of what is what is obtainable. Yeah. From my understanding, I know that there's a lot of room for innovation um, uh, around transportation, ground transportation, or corporate transportation within Africa, where companies are able to utilize more technology um, to harness the opportunities that that um, that are available within Africa. You know, although there are some companies that are already taking the lead for 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 providing good transport systems, or good corporate transportation within Africa. And I'll say a case of like a DriveMe.ng, where driving is able to provide drivers for top level executives, where even if they have their own vehicles, the company is able to provide a driver for them to move a well dressed and vast road knowledge driver that is able to provide the service and move and drive them around in their own cars. So this includes driver training, driver management, which is very important because the drivers are almost as important as the vehicles. So there needs to be an equal level of attention given to the drivers, as the case may be. So as I mentioned here in the slide, that driving.ng is a case study that can be looked at and analyzed for the work that they're doing in the African context. Um, there's another company called Plenty Waka. What they do is they're able to provide a bus booking service by using technology through your mobile devices. So what they're essentially doing is they're able to partner with corporates to provide a staff bus system for their staff. So any organization interested in moving their staff from point to point is able to partner with this company and sign up their staff for commuting from point to point within the city. Um, so within the African context, I believe there's more room. There's room for a lot more innovation. There's room for a lot more companies to play within the space and tap into the opportunities that lie within the African continent. There's also the on-demand driver service that I believe is very critical, whereby because you already have vehicles, as I earlier mentioned, um, the real stress around it is the driving of those vehicles and staying productive because there's a lot of traffic. or most executives or most organizations are located within busy cities. So commuting to and from work for staff can be, a rigor. So being able to, provide like an on-demand driver service for days where the employee or the executive or the VIP doesn't want to particularly drive their own vehicle or get into a rented car, they can, hire a driver on demand to drive them around in the comfort of their own vehicles where they're able to, stay productive and do other things that are important to them. Vehicle rental is another thing. Yes, there are already companies that are doing this, but of course, there's more room for partnership, for increased asset base, for better vehicles, um, or larger fleets of vehicles, which include buses, um, which includes the buses, the cars, and whatever vehicles are important to the organization. So yeah, vehicle rental is one of those that um, those opportunities that lie within the African context and needs to, be properly built up. So like a company like a DriveMe.ng is definitely seeking partnerships and seeking collaborators and investors to be able to, expand its territory to other African nations. And so what is the future of corporate transportation in Africa? It's a very valid question because everybody wants to look into the future and be able to predict what is going to happen and what opportunities lie ahead and how can you thoroughly position yourself to tap into those opportunities. Um, One of the things I'll point out is the infusion of artificial intelligence in scheduling and routing of ground transport services. This would include utilizing deep technology in transport services. So imagine if there is more technology infused in providing corporate transportation, whereby your routes, your scheduling, pick up time, drop off time, all of those things are thoroughly predicted based on the schedule of the executive or the staff and stuff like that, whereby you're able to get notifications on your mobile devices as to your boss is going to be arriving in the next 1 hour, or your car is going to be arriving in the next 2 hours. You can start to prepare yourself, you know, or your driver is able to identify you without necessarily asking for any form of ID or anything like that. Infusion of more technology within the ground transport space is very critical. Access to funding is also not to be under emphasized because funding is critical for any company to thoroughly succeed. They need the ability to be able to access funds at not so expensive rates. So within Africa, it's important it's important to be able to access a lot more funding within the African space. So funding really for funding other funding options, not necessarily venture, but it could be just other forms of finances, financing for asset acquisition, and at very low interest rates. And that way, businesses are able to survive and sustain themselves longer and stuff like that. Infrastructure development, um, access to better roads, access to more better road networks, connectivity of cities without having to fly in airplanes and being able to drive within the country is very important. Many parts of Africa don't particularly have great roads, except some of the bigger, more advanced African countries. But for the larger part of Africa, there's a gap within the infrastructure space. And the future, for any form of transportation is pretty much better road networks for for commuting and for access. So I hope I've been able to share some information, share some light as to what corporate transportation is and what the future is within Africa. And I hope to be able to receive some questions from you and engage thoroughly with everyone. Thank you very much for listening to my presentation, and I'm available to take questions. Thank you.